And I think we're live.
Yep.
We're live.
We're live. Let me see if I can get it to come up on Facebook. It says we're live. I guess we're live.
Little red clock says we are.
All right. Well, cool. Well, thanks for joining me, guys. It's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to do this for a few years. We've talked about it a lot, talked about podcasts. We did produce a whole bunch of video content. But this is a new format. It's something fun. I think it'll be cool and fun. So, for those that don't know, my name is Lance James. I started Speed and Chrome back in 2003 as a print magazine. Actually, the first issue came out in 2004, January, and spent the summer photographing and doing that and launching the magazine. So that's kind of the origin for those who don't even know we did a print magazine. And then met you guys a few years later. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Yeah, well, my name's Mitch. I live down in a little suburb just south of Los Angeles, just west of the beach in this little town called Hawthorne. And I kind of cover whatever's happening in the southern part of California, as long as it's relatively close to where I live, because there's just a lot going on out here. But yeah, I did a couple of articles in print, and then after that we transitioned into video, and I've done a few items on video, and now here we are, Facebook. And so I think this is probably where you're going to see my face more than anything else, really.
Mine too. I like to be behind the camera.
Well, my name's Tony. I haven't been around these guys as long as they have each other. I'm in Oklahoma, middle of the world. There's not quite as much going on around here car-wise, or at least year-round as the other guys have it. We're kind of fair weather. Although if my car had a heater, I'd probably drive it in the wintertime too. But I met Lance online. We were chatting about Speed and Chrome, and he was saying something about not having his videos done, and I'm like, dude, I do that for a living. Send it to me, and brown trout was born out of that, and that was one of my favorite videos we've done.
That was 7 or 8 years ago? I filmed that. I'll have to go back and look. I think you edited it about 5 years ago, right?
It's been a little while, yeah.
But that's to date. That's the highest viewed video that we have on YouTube.
Yeah, well, you can't beat a supercharged gasser 55 Chevy, so.
No, it's 26,000 views now as of today.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a big one. That was a lot of fun. Flip with his and that car's been sold I think 5 times since he's owned it. It went all the way to the Midwest, and it came all the way back to California.
Back home, huh?
Yep. So yeah, and I'm in Modesto, and I think some people know that, but yeah, Central Valley here in Modesto, where American Graffiti was based, and George Lucas's hometown, and yeah, it's a great car culture area for sure. Grew up around them, all kinds, and cruising. In the 60s, they cruised 10th Street, and then when I grew up, got my license, started driving late 80s, early 90s, it was cruising McHenry. So it's been a lot of years, and Friday nights, Saturday nights cruising McHenry, and a whole slew of cars. So, but yeah, so 2003, I launched the magazine, or launched the idea. So for those that don't really know the origin story, my background is in graphic design and photography and just all that sort of stuff. So I literally have no idea why I started a magazine. I honestly don't. It was not something that made any sense. I think it was just a challenge. It was like, I saw some independent magazines that were out at the time, and there was only like maybe 7 or 8, and they weren't done to the highest quality. It was more about, information, but it wasn't packaged in a real nice way. And I knew I thought I could produce something better, a higher end, product. And so just literally went and bought a camera and bought a computer and started taking photos. I didn't know how to write, well, So, I got a hold of people and they helped write articles, and I did the photography and I did design, and I found a printer and I started publishing a magazine. So, and I learned as I went. So just like a lot of things in life, the more you go, the further you go, the better you get. And I think in the end, we ended up doing 10 magazines over the course of like 10 years. So it was a slow, methodical start-stop process, but yeah, learned a lot. It was, is that number 10?
Yes.
That's the last one we did. And that was about 3 years ago.
Yep. Issue number 10.
And you wrote for that one, right, Mitch?
Yep.
Yeah, you did the, there you go. And that's your old car there.
That's my old car. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. I keep those in my office so I could show off.
That one had the engine for the canned monster in it, didn't it?
It did at the beginning stages of that build. So that was 3 years ago. I think that issue came out, maybe 4. I'll have to go look back. So yeah, we were pretty hot and heavy on that car build about 5 years ago, and it's still a project. Thanks for bringing that up, Tony.
Well, they're all projects always, aren't they?
In my life, yeah.
Yeah. I've had mine almost 20 years, and I don't know what I installed the air conditioner in it probably 10 years ago, and it's still not working. So, but
they're always projects. I would love to, finish one and keep it. I like variety, and, I don't get emotionally attached to cars. So that's why I've had over 100 cars. That's why, there's probably maybe only 1 or 2 out of that 100 that I would buy it back if I had the opportunity.
Yep.
And it really had nothing to do with the car. It was where I was in my life at the time. It was the sentimental value attached to that car.
So which two?
Not the car. A 72 Le Mans Sport that I had, and it was a really cool car. It was originally a 350 car, but when I got it, it was a 326 high output Pontiac, factory 4-speed, factory posi, factory bucket seat, factory tack. Lot of fun. But the summer I spent in that car was like one of the funnest summers of my life. So it was that one for sure. And I traded it off, and if I could get it back, I would like to have that one back just for the sentimental value. And then the car that I had when I met my wife and we went on our first date in is another one I'd like to have back. That was a 66 Coronet, big block car, had a pumped up 440 in it, 727. It was that weird kind of a gold green color.
Mm-hmm.
It was a two-door hardtop. It was a factory 3-3 car. I put a 440 in it. I cruised it around up and down McHenry. And yeah, probably those 2 cars just for couple of amazing years, and I had them one right after the other, which is kind of funny. So, and that was 26 years ago or something now. I don't know.
Wow.
It's been a long time.
If I could get my first car back, I had a 74 Nova back in the 80s, and it didn't seem like much at the time, but we spent some money on it, got it looking nice, and I ended up trading it off to my dad for a 74 El Camino because I was tired of working on it. And then ended up doing all the same stuff that I just to the El Camino that I had done with Nova, and now I wish I had that Nova back. And but if I did that, I probably wouldn't have my 53 now either. So because I'm just trying to be realistic, I can't get rid of one because I don't know that I'd ever get another one to build it. So
That's a great car, Tony.
That is. Yeah, my 2 was I had bought and both of them came from original owner, like, old fogey people that were going to not be driving anymore. One lady, I think, passed away, and the other guy just was going to stop driving. And both of them were weirdo cars. I had a 64 Malibu, but it had a 6-cylinder Power Glide bench seat, which you never see in a Chevelle Malibu. And I drove that car to New Mexico and back. It was just awesome car. Just get in it, hit the gas, and go have a 250 with a Power Glide. and it just went. And the AM radio worked, and it just went and went and went and went and went. And at some point, I was working on it, and the transmission slipped into gear and took off and drove into my neighbor's truck. It had a big work bumper on it, so it didn't do anything to his truck at all, but it smashed my front end.
Yeah.
So I found all the parts for it, sent it to the body shop, got it all straightened out, and then not too long later, before I even had it all back together, the timing chain went out. So the tow truck driver picked it up from the back, but didn't tie off the steering wheel.
Nice.
And he took off, and as he was going around the bend inside the parking lot, the car swung around, went up over the curb, banged a bunch of stuff. So I got it fixed, got it home, and I needed a car. I was living in an apartment down at the beach, and I didn't have space. I didn't have time. I was going to school out in Dominguez Hills, and I just needed something to do. And so I sold it for $700 to a guy. And then I blew that money on a ticket to Hawaii and went to Hawaii for a week. And then some years later, I wound up buying a 60 Biscayne. But it was a 6-cylinder Power Glide car. But that one had a full Impala trim package on it.
Oh, wow. Two-door?
Yeah, it was a two-door post.
Very
so
nice.
It had the Impala taillights. It had the Impala side trim, had an Impala dash.
Yeah.
But it didn't have the Impala Deluxe interior, the seats with the little deal in the back and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that was kind of around the time that the ratty kind of a thing started to get a little bit of steam. And one of the fenders was a little crinkled. So I just sprayed the whole thing in semi-gloss black, and then I rattle canned some two-tone scallops on it, put some moon caps on it, lowered it, and drove that until my wife wanted to buy the 52 Chevy that I just showed. So I sold that to a guy because he wanted my Impala. And he'd been telling me for years he was going to buy it. Yeah. So he finally came up, hey, bro, I got the money. No, you don't. You're not going to buy my car. Oh, I'm serious, bro. So he came by, dropped the money in my hand, drove off, and I literally went on the couch, the only car I've ever cried about. And I went and sat on the couch and cried. And I get a call about 2 hours later. Hey, bro, I got to bring the car back. What do you mean you got to bring the car back? You paid for it. He says, well, it's not an Impala. I said, I know it's not an Impala. It's a Biscayne. Why didn't you do your homework before you bought it? But it was a guy that I knew, and I wanted the car back. So I took it back, and then I wound up selling it to another gal, and she took it up north by you. But I would take either one of those cars back in a heartbeat. And my wife's still trying to get me to buy that 52 Chevy back that I sold. That was one like the Trout that went and came back.
Is this still around?
Yeah, the guy who owned it when I shot that still owns it. He lives here in town by me.
Okay.
I sold it to a guy in Clear Lake, which you know where that's at, way up at the northern tip of California.
Yeah.
And he wound up trading it back to my buddy. I don't know if you remember when Groucho built that 50 Ford Gasser, the green one.
I think so, yeah.
You guys remember that one? Rick had that, and he traded it to that guy. So the car wound up back down here. My wife still hasn't forgiven me for selling that car. And then Rick shows up at my car show with it.
Yeah.
And I've never seen you were there, I think.
Yeah.
My wife.
Yeah, we shot video of that.
Yeah. My wife got so steamed about that. But I think she's over it now.
Yeah. No, that's a great car. It's a really nice car.
Yeah.
My wife wouldn't be sad if I got rid of mine, but she knows it makes me happy. Even though I've been mad at it before. So one time I drove it to work and sprung a leak in the heater core and was just pouring antifreeze inside. And I was so mad. If I'd have had a match, I'd have lit it off in the parking lot. But no, I love it. I would say that I'm probably attached to my Chevy. I've had it for 20 years.
Yeah, that's a long time.
As long as my wife, actually. And I found it when we were dating because I'm like, hey, we need to go look at this car again up here in this little town. And she went with me and, was unimpressed as she is now, probably. But like I said, she knows it makes me happy, and the kids love it. And my kids have never known a world without having a hot rod in the garage.
Right.
So
That's awesome. So did you guys all grow up in hot rod families?
I'm a first generation hot rodder. No, most of my influence came when I was younger, came from my cousin who had a lot of hot rods, muscle cars, and just Novas and Chevelles, and early '60s Chevy trucks and all of that. So, but now it's kind of like just came out of the blue, and then I inflicted it upon my brother. So he's into old cars now. But no, I wish I would have grown up in a family. I would have been a lot further ahead with my knowledge base if I had somebody teaching me. But I had to learn at the time. I mean, there was no internet growing up, so you learn by reading Hot Rod magazine. That's pretty much what we did. Anything car related, that you could get your hands on, to go to the library, talk to people you knew. I learned a lesson talking to people about what they knew, because I could ask the same question to 3 different people and I'd get 3 different answers, and one of them might be right. So when I got older, I kind of sorted those things out. I was like, oh, okay. I asked a person one time what the blower whine, right? Like, that has a distinct sound that only blowers make. And I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about superchargers, so I couldn't figure out like what made the sound. So I asked a couple of different people, and they didn't tell me it was the blower. The first one that told me, and he made up some story. He didn't tell me he didn't know. He just made something up. So I finally ended up talking to a guy who he actually was a mechanic. That's what he did for a living. And I asked him, and he explained it all out, and he was like 100% right. So I was like, okay. So that was like, yeah, it was probably mid 80s at that time. He couldn't Google it. I mean, people are ridiculously spoiled now with YouTube videos showing you how to work on your car, which I've personally used, only when I got to work on my Toyota and my, other cars, like the old junk, man, not a big deal. But
well, there's something to be said about that, because we all basically met through the ham.
Yeah.
And, as far as, that was kind of like my internet Bible for traditional hot rod stuff.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a drag racing house.
It probably still is.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I still look at it from time to time, but I grew up in drag racing, and so I didn't know anything about traditional hot rods. I knew I liked them, but I didn't know anything about them. I got my first car was a Volkswagen, and I had a number of Volkswagens until I got that Chevelle. I had a '64 Chevy pickup and a '75 Cadillac, and then I got my Chevelle, and then I got my '60, my Biscayne, and that's really where it set in. I started going to all of the shows that the Shifters were putting on down here in Southern California, and that whole kind of revival thing was happening. And, the ham was the holy grail for learning about dropped axles and juice brakes. And, guys were they were chopping tops and sectioning stuff, and Clark was making fiberglass tops, and, guys were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I couldn't get enough of it. And I was just eating it. And some of the stuff that I learned there, I'm using in my business today.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't know half the stuff I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually came home from the hospital in a '70 Chevelle.
Nice.
And at the time, my folks owned the Chevelle and the '69 Camaro. So, but that was before I knew anything. But we lived down in Florida when I was born. So, I was going to the Daytona all the time, but I can't tell you anything about it because I was 4 when we left. But my dad was, very mechanical all the time. And it wasn't really until my mom married my stepdad, he was an automotive tech teacher. And so every summer, as much as I hated it, I was out in the driveway under a hood of a car. And now that my stepdad has passed on, I wish I'd have paid more attention instead of complaining so much. I like, I'm with my son, we're building him an '86 C10, and I try to make him get out there with me as much as he can, because I told him, I said, even if you never build a car, at least you'll be mechanical.
Right.
And, you know, and I rebuilt my first carburetor probably 5 years ago, and I was scared to death because, you know, 11 million little pieces in those things. And, but if, you know, you just pay attention to what you did and follow the instructions, it's still running. So,
Yeah.
and I probably rebuilt 2 or 3 since then. And, you know, Edelbrocks are a little easier than Quadrajets, but no, it's just one of those deals where, you know, I got my first car, the 74 Nova. I went to a 74 El Camino, which was wrecked. Got another El Camino, and then got another El Camino. See a theme here. My grandpa worked in the oil fields, and he always drove El Caminos because he didn't like pickups.
Oh.
And so it was just kind of one of those things in my family. But
yeah.
And then I ended up with a 92 Camaro, which I wish I still, that was the other one I wish I still had. It was a V6 car, but it was probably the funnest car I've ever had.
Is that like the IROC styles?
Mm-hmm.
The square?
Yeah.
Those are like getting really popular again. People are buying them and restoring them.
Yeah, mine was mine was a 92, so it was last year for that body style.
That's a great body style.
And it was a V6 5-speed, and like I said, it was the funnest car. It was comfortable. The guy I got it from had put a 4th generation interior in it, and so the seats were way more comfortable than the 3rd gens. But no, it's just one of those deals where you know, where I was working at the time, I had a company vehicle, so I didn't have to worry about the Camaro all the time. So when it came an opportunity to sell it, I got rid of it, and I was just driving a company vehicle. And then I was going to build a 71 El Camino. Again, there's that common thread, until I found my 53 sitting on a car lot in a little college town. And I told my stepdad, I'm like, you have to go look at this car with me. It's all original, but the paint. And so we hauled a car dolly down there and came back with it that night, and drove it one time, and before I took it out, got it hot rodded. So it was 3 on the tree, inline 6, you know, was it probably 216? And I called my dad in New Mexico, who now builds hot rods in his free time. Now that he's
man.
And I said, I got this car, we're going to V8 it. And I probably didn't see it for another 3 or 4 years. And then he brought it back to me, and it's been on the road ever since. So
that's cool.
That's awesome.
But
I'll have to go ahead, Tony.
Well, I was going to say, you know, talking about, like, you know, how Mitch is in, you know, drag racing family, and I know Lance, you're a little more custom. I was diehard muscle car guy.
Yeah.
All the time. You know, I was going to have, you know, my dream car, and still is to this day, is a 69 GTO. And so when the car first got on the road, it had mags. It was sitting up kind of high, you know, stink bug high, but it was sitting up there. And slowly over time, via the ham and just looking at other things, it's become lower and more traditional and less sparkly. And so, not a custom by any means, but it's no longer that late 80s muscle car vibe either.
Yeah. My custom project is my 53 DeSoto, which I've had for, I'll have to do the math, I think 17 or 18 years. Still not done. Still not driving. Bought it out of a field. But it was neat. It was a 2-door hardtop Hemi car, and it was about 98% complete. So, and it was neat. It's still neat. It's not at my house right now. It's at a friend's. He's doing a 4-link in the back. With their ride in the back. The front end, I had already installed a Jamco drop springs. We still need to do a little work to the front end, but it's a very slow project, you know. Just like
I don't have that kind of patience.
Well, right now it's out of sight, out of mind. I mean, I've got like 7 project cars, so it's I've
got the next in a long line. I bought when I got all revved up on the ham, and I knew I liked T-buckets and early roadsters because they were like street versions of dragsters, you know, just really super lightweight, nothing to them. You could slap them together for a few bucks and go off and drive them. So there's a guy named Dave. He goes by 41 Dave on the ham. He lives out in Adelanto, and I went out and I bought a 27 project from him. Now that I know what I know, I feel like such a moron. It had a bobbed 32 frame, which was it. Now Piero is building a Tweety Pie repot.
Yep.
And the frame is the exact same dimensions as the Tweety Pie.
Oh wow!
And it had a 32 axle, Mercury reverse wheels. I had all this stuff, and I sold it all because I wanted to just get a different frame and blah, 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 blah. I didn't know nothing.
Yep.
So since then, I've had a revolving door of T-Bucket and 27 projects. I've had steel 27s. I've had fiberglass. I've had a whole bunch of fiberglass 23s. And so I think you remember that red 57 I bought late last year.
Mm-hmm.
I sold it because I knew I was going to start getting into a while you're at it problem.
Yep.
So before I even touched it, I sold it. And so now I've got just that T-Bucket project. And then I've got another one sitting behind my garage, which I want to either do. And the one that I bought was actually the body. It's a Survivor body. It's got a full length, full windshield and a top and diamond interior. It's got the dashboard out of like a 69 Datsun pickup or something weird like that.
Wow.
And then it was sitting on an original T frame, but it had an Alfa Romeo rear end and Alfa Romeo rack and pinion steering.
Wow.
Like all this weird stuff. So I sold all that stuff off, kept the body. So it's just going to be real traditional Speedway front end because I was hoarding T-Bucket parts. I had enough to build like a couple of cars. So I just kept the stuff that I wanted, flipped everything else out. But in the process of all that, I managed to keep a Model A frame with numbers, another body, another rear end, and a car that I'm working on now. We're going to pull the whole front end out of that and put another one in. And it's it's so janky, but it's so cool. Home built hairpins and a totally stretched drop axle and all this kind of stuff. But I promise I'm not going to do anything else until I get the one T-Bucket built. And so of course it's been sitting there for 4 years. So you tell me.
Yeah, I did the same thing with mine when I was like, oh, I'm going to build mine this way and I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to get rid of this and I'm going to sell that and get rid of these. And the next thing I know, it's like, man, I wish I had my steering wheel back because I sure would like to have that old 53, and it's like, man, I wish I hadn't sold all that junk. But at the time, it was like, no, it's going to be sparkly and shiny and blingy and hot rod. And no.
So Jimmy has a question. That was issue number 1, Jimbo. Issue number 1, 55 Chevy, black 55 Chevy, and the yellow 32 Ford Coupe on the issue, the cover of the very first issue. And that was a fun summer. That was a very fun summer, 2003, shooting all those different cars around here. I met people then that I'm still friends with today. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so for everybody who's watching, don't forget to go to the Speed and Chrome Instagram. You already got the Speed and Chrome Facebook page and the Speed and Chrome YouTube.
We haven't even talked about YouTube. Go to YouTube, subscribe to YouTube.
And all this stuff will be on YouTube later.
Yeah, this will migrate over to YouTube, and it'll probably migrate into a podcast as well. But we're like 430 subscribers or something right now on YouTube. So as soon as we hit 500, we're going to do a pretty decent giveaway. So all you have to do to enter is just go subscribe. So I'm going to pull down the first 500 subscribers off of YouTube and throw them in a hat and pull somebody's name out. So there's going to be some shirts involved, DVD, Eaglefield Drags DVD. I may pull one of every issue that I have still available. I think I have 7 of the 10 back issues still available. So, and decals, I don't know. We'll put together a nice package. So go subscribe to our YouTube channel and get entered to win. So
432.
32 now?
432.
Yeah. Everybody's been home because, we're all at home right now with this, crazy virus stuff. But
if you love it, I mean, we've got the Mailman Cabriolet on there.
There's some really, really good stuff on there.
Pickup that Mitch shot, the Keep On Trucking truck.
And we got gassers. We've got,
lowriders, T-Buckets, race cars,
some old beat up Ford panel pickup truck.
Yeah, that Battlebird is an absolutely mind-boggling build.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Was really
and then the Survivor, the Mailman, that's just that's a piece of history.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love those.
When you sent that to me and I saw that and I saw, the connection with the Beach Boys and the Ed Sullivan's show. I was like, man, some guy built this thing in his driveway,
Yeah,
sprayed it in his driveway, and here it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was a 32 Chevy, right?
yeah,
Was it
31?
31?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Cabriolet. I know I was calling it a roadster for a while, and somebody called me out on that. So thank you, internet.
So little bit of trivia. Speaking of the Beach Boys,
Yeah.
I live in the hometown of the Beach Boys. So when they say be true to your school, Hawthorne High School, and cruising to the hamburger stand, you know that song, Got a Daddy's Car, you know.
Yeah.
That was the AMW on Hawthorne and 137th, and we've actually got a Beach Boys memorial down here, which is really kind of funny because, have you guys seen the movie Love and Mercy about Brian Wilson on Amazon? Mm-hmm. The scene where they want to go back to where the house was, but it's gone now. They're not even in the neighborhood, which is so funny because they could have been totally, accurate with it, but they shot it somewhere up in like Culver City or something. They're not even close to home. But anyway, sidebar over.
Well, that's kind of like, American Graffiti, because, that was shot 10 years after it was set. It was set in, 62, but it was like 70. I think they were filming it in 71. And Modesto had grown up too much, so they ended up filming most of that in Petaluma, except for the actual drive-in diner parts. That was filmed in San Francisco, and they had already closed the drive-in. They opened it back up just for the film, and then right after they finished filming, they tore it all down.
Wow. So,
but yeah, most of that was shot in Petaluma, so because it still had the small town feel, had the buildings with the right, but if you look at that, if you're familiar with Modesto and you watch that film, it's just like Modesto, and how you can hear the train, because we have trains that ran right down the middle of the streets here, and you could hear the trains, in the film when you're watching and stuff. It's growing up around here, it sure brings back a lot of memories. So,
well, what's interesting about talking about the cruising is since the whole quarantine and lockdown things, a lot of the small towns here in Oklahoma have started cruising the main drags again, because you're 6 feet apart from each other in your cars, So, and what's kind of neat is some of the cities they're on board, and the cops are out there, and they're sitting out there saying, hey, take it easy, don't be an idiot, the things like normal teenage kids would do, but they're cruising again. They're getting out and dragging their old cars out and going and cruising Main or 12th Street or whatever it was.
Right.
I never got to do that in high school. I was always working Friday nights. So,
yeah, good times, man. So many memories made with cars through the years. For growing up not in a car family, to be as obsessed as I am about cars it's something else. And
yeah,
I like them a lot.
I'm working with my son, and like I said, he's going to turn 16 in June, and so we've been working on this pickup, and he has yet to develop his style yet.
Yeah.
Because when I saw the car, I talked to our friend Jeff, and I was like, I'm looking for a pickup. He goes, well, I know where there's a C10, and so I'll be asking my son, well, what kind of wheels do you want? What kind of this do you want? He's like, well, I don't know. What do you want? And I'm like, well, I know what I would build, but it's not my truck. So I want it to reflect you. And so every once in a while he'll say, well, I'm not sure, but I know I like what you like. It's been kind of hard. He's always been there, but he hasn't developed that style yet.
Yeah.
And it changes. Like I said,
I
was a muscle car guy, and I got a 53 Chevy sitting in the garage, and I'd be hard pressed to get rid of it for a muscle car. Although I saw one the other day well, you had that 70 for a while.
I did.
And I was like, oh man, if I get my hands on that thing. But
yeah, got it from the original owner, which is pretty amazing.
But I'm waiting for Max to develop his sense of style. What does he like and what does he like? Which is hard for me, because when I'm working on the car, it's like, all right, I want it to be low, I want it to have shiny wheels, and I want it to be this, and I'm like, but it's not my truck. It's going to be a 16-year-old, so I just need it to stop and keep him safe.
Yeah, I like them all. Unfortunately, that's probably not a good thing, but right now I own Fords and Chevys and Mopars all at the same time. So
yeah, me too.
But
most of them are late models though. So
yeah, All my late models are not American made.
No, my old cars are both Chevys, so everything else is something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've had a little of each. Well, no, actually, I've only owned one Mopar. I had a 48 Plymouth Custom that I had. That was a cool car.
Okay.
But everything else has been, yeah, all Ford and shit. I had a Pontiac 67 Firebird. So that's still GM. But that one and the 60 both went together to put the money together for that 52. But yeah, now I think I'm just T-buckets to the bone. And that's it.
My first Mopar was actually the first car I ever bought that ran and drove, which was technically the third car I'd ever owned, but it was the first car that didn't need to be worked on. And it was a 69 Roadrunner. So big block, 440, 727, two-door hardtop, real legit 69 California Roadrunner with the pop-out windows, rear windows, and bought it on a Sunday night, and I wrecked it on a Wednesday morning.
Nice.
Totaled it.
Excellent.
Only car wreck I've ever been in my life. That was when I was 19.
I think
I just disintegrated the car.
I think I have found the one Mopar that I would really love to have. It's sitting out in my driveway right now. We're working on a 68 or 69 A100 pickup. It's got the little slant six in it, you know, and it's the second one we've worked on recently. I had an A108 van, but didn't have a motor or a tranny. I owned it the way you own most of your cars. Get it, sits for a while, off it goes. But
make a couple bucks,
yeah,
roll it into the next one.
But that A108 pickup is awesome. I like the Econoline pickups. I don't like the Chevy version, but that A108 is great. It's a 5-window and neat truck. It's a Dodge. Yeah, the A100 pickup.
Now the Corvair ones like that are really pretty.
Really nice looking. They're just awkward to drive the way they're set up. The steering wheels
are just pretty cars as a whole. They don't run very well, but they look nice.
Yep.
So.
I had one of those I had two of those for a short time. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what we were going to build for Max, and then I decided I did not know enough about them, and I didn't learn anything more, so I sent them down the road to buy his pickup. And the guy who bought they were both 66s, and one of them was the Corsa, the 140 horse.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who bought that actually just got it back on the road. He completely restored it, put the 140 back in it.
Wow.
And that was about 4 years ago, but yeah. He jumped on that one pretty hard when I put it up for sale, so I realized I didn't price it high enough. So,
yeah, we've got a Corvair club that meets here, and I didn't realize. Well, I guess just like anything else, people get hardcore into anything, but these guys are nuts with these Corvairs. A lot of guys have done V8 conversions or V6 conversions, put the 3.8 liters in them.
Yeah, and
turbo jobs and all this kind of stuff. And I almost bought one a bunch of years ago because it was kind of a step up from a Volkswagen. And I just like them, the way they drive. They sit real nice. They handle cool if you set them upright. And, they just look like like a Corvette and a Camaro had a baby. And there it is, you know.
That's what I liked about that 66 is it had all the best parts of a Camaro. And the doors.
Had great lines.
Yeah.
So what's coming up in the next couple of weeks, Lance?
Well, I think we're going to do some more of these lives. Hopefully we'll get some guests, guest visitors, talk to some people, and we could do some tech, talks, and we can go over all of our projects. I've got enough projects personally to cover quite a few different lives.
Lance is going to keep us busy for the next 3 months.
I could spend, oh man, I would need to wrap things up. We've been talking like 40 minutes already, but I've been working on this 58 Ford panel truck, and it's really grown on me. I've never had one, and never had a panel truck, never had this year Ford, which is the color fridge style Ford. Never had an inline 223, so that's been an educational experience. And I never drug one out of a field like I did this one. So Yeah, I need to record a part 2 video. I've done so much work to that since I finished that video. I finished that video like a year ago, and I've spent like another 12 months working on it. So learned a lot. So I need to get in gear and get that something put together for that. But
I'm gonna go drag a 62 Nova out of a yard on Saturday.
Oh yeah,
which I may or may not keep. But
yeah, we talked.
We'll see. So maybe we'll have an update on that next time around and see if I get bit or not.
Yeah.
Yep.
My daughter, she's 10. She's always asking, "What kind of car are you gonna get me, Dad?" I don't know, dear. You're only 10. What do you want? I want a pickup. So,
yeah.
There you go.
My daughter said she wanted a DeLorean, so I'm still working on that one.
Good luck.
She's got a Nissan right now, so
the Nissan DeLorean.
Nissan DeLorean. Yeah.
Good deal.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll catch you again soon. All right. See you guys.